and welcome to our inaugural episode of The Book Tasters. From young adult to tween and everything in between, The Book Tasters serve up the tastiest reviews of today's and yesterday's greatest stories. I'm your host, Timothy J. Burdick, and I'm joined by my co-host for the week, Ella. Ella, how you doing today?
Good.
So, I hear you brought a couple of fun facts to share with us today. Why don't you get us started with some unbelievable facts?
Okay. I have, my first fact is that there is a word that means to love the smell of old books, and the word is biblicore. Biblicore. So if you want to become a librarian, it's probably good that you're a biblicore because you need that scent in your life, right? Yes. Wouldn't it be funny if they actually made a cologne or like a perfume called biblicore and we all just smelled like books? And then all of the librarians would love us.
Exactly.
And we could be as loud as we want and they'd still love us.
Exactly. We always want the librarians to love us because they're the ones that hook us up with the best stories, right? Mm-hmm. All right, I got one for you too. Okay. So this is a little sciencey. I'm not a science teacher, but I like science, right? So because of the water cycle, there's water on the earth today that's over 1 million years old.
Whoa.
Wouldn't it be cool? So shouldn't bottled water then be considered an antique and we should sell it for like millions of dollars?
Yes, in the antique store, but then everybody would probably suffer.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'd all probably go in drought because everyone would be selling water for like $50 million.
Yep.
No one could afford water.
Yes.
That would not be good.
Mm-mm.
Got another one for me?
Okay. The only two places you can't buy Coca-Cola are North Korea and Cuba.
Oh, and it's probably because of the communist governments in those areas. They like to restrict things.
Yes.
And I wonder how many books they restrict. Can you imagine living in a world where you couldn't read books that you wanted to read?
That would be really sad.
Would it be worse than living in a place that you couldn't have a Coke?
Yes.
I agree with you there. All right, I got another one for you, okay? This one's funny because, as you know, I'm your teacher. I'm pretty tall, right?
Yeah.
So high heels were originally made for men.
What?
Yeah, can you believe that?
That's weird.
Now, I want you to imagine me coming into class tomorrow with 6-inch high heels, being able to teach all the students. First of all, how many times would I fall?
I would guess 100?
100 at least, yes. I'd probably break a
Very
couple
difficult.
bones.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think the students would react positively or negatively to my awesome new shoes?
Both.
Would you buy me a pair, please?
Sure.
Oh,
yes.
fantastic. The holidays are coming up, and
Yeah.
the one thing that I desperately want are high heels.
Oh, yes.
Male high heels.
Oh, yeah. They would look great.
All right, I know you got one more for me.
Yes. Some cats are actually allergic to humans.
Cats are allergic to humans?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness gracious. So, do we have to, cut our hair so that the cats will be pleased?
I honestly don't know.
Hyperallergenic cats for humans. Interesting.
Oh, yes.
Interesting. Well, can you tell me a little bit about, I think you had a fact that was tied into the book that you're reading as well, too.
Oh, yes.
What do you got for me?
The author of Hunger Games was professionally trained to be a sword fighter.
Wait a minute. So Suzanne Collins has been professionally trained
Yes.
to actually fight, and she wrote about fighting people?
Yes, but she actually said she would not be able to compete in the Hunger Games.
Well, why not?
I don't know.
Do you mean...
Maybe she's not trained enough.
Oh, so she thinks she's not on the professional level to be able to, fight against all the crazy people that are on the Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's the book you're currently reading, right?
Yes.
And would you like to tell us a little bit about those characters and why they would probably kill Suzanne Collins in the ring if they needed to?
Well, Katniss is very good with bow and arrow.
And Katniss is the main character, correct?
Yes.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about her story.
She lives in District 12, and she lives with her mother and little sister. And her father died. I think it was an explosion of some sort. So she's been fighting to gain food and water and enough resources to keep her and her family living. Interesting. And so the Hunger Games then enter her world. How did this occur?
Well, each year, I think, they have they pull names out of two glass
Jars, bowls,
Yes.
what may be,
and,
containers.
yes, containers, and the names that are on those papers, they have to enter the Hunger Games and compete.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Katniss. Well, I can't tell you actually what happened, but she does get involved with the Hunger Games.
She does get involved with the Hunger Games. Okay, so she has to get involved, so she has to fight.
Yes.
Is she a fighter by nature? Is that like kind of who she is? Does she like fight all the time?
Yeah, because to collect food for her and her family, she has to go into this really dangerous woods area in District 12, and she has to try and find food to either kill or collect from bushes or some sort.
Okay, so she's got some survival skills, and you said earlier that she's really good with a bow and arrow,
Yes.
right? So this obviously came from a lot of training in the forest, trying to find
Yes.
food to eat. I imagine there's not a whole lot of food to eat, so she actually has to be a
No.
pretty good tracker too, because if everybody's starving and everyone's looking for food, she has to be really good at tracking, and she has to be really good at shooting her bow and arrow.
Yes.
Otherwise, she won't get things quick enough, because the only animals that are surviving are the really, really quick ones and the really, really smart ones. The stupid ones are the ones that have already been killed and eaten, right? But the ones that are still alive are the ones that are hardest to catch.
Yes.
So I imagine that helps a lot in the Hunger Games, right? So what exactly are the Hunger Games? You said that two people get picked from, a container, and I imagine there's different districts, because you said she's in
is,
District
yes.
12.
The-
So what happens in these Hunger Games?
So they they choose one male and one female from each district, from the ages 12 to 18, and those two have to compete with all the other pairs in all the districts in this like dome basically, and they fight to the death, and the last person standing wins the Hunger Games.
And does everybody get to watch these games, or is it just is it just them, and then whoever emerges gets or is it like, is it a spectacle? What is it?
Yes, there are cameras like throughout the whole dome, so people from all the districts can watch what is going on.
Oh, so it's basically like reality TV to the
Yes.
death.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, that does not sound like a world I would like to live in.
No.
No, definitely not. So I know that you've been reading a lot in this book. Approximately how far along are you in the book? Are you almost finished? Are you halfway
Almost
through?
Halfway through.
Almost halfway through?
Yes.
So you brought the book with you, and that's awesome. I know you wanted to read a little bit of the book too,
yeah.
as well. Would you like to go ahead and find those pages real quick while I talk a little bit about Suzanne Collins and the Hunger Games?
Yes.
And then we'll let you read a little portion, give a little taste test for the
Yes.
book taster episode number 1, which
Yes.
we get to talk about awesome books.
Yes.
So Ella, what she was mentioning obviously is obviously turned into a great series. It's there's 3 books in it currently, and the 4th book I believe is coming out in May.
Yes.
But definitely it's a bestseller. It's sold millions of copies. It's made movies. The Hunger Games, the very first book, however, would you say is definitely necessary and definitely a good book to read?
Yes,
All right.
definitely.
So you're enjoying this one?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so why don't you go ahead and read out loud the portion that you have chosen for us.
Okay. I had just turned away from Peeta Malark's bruised face when I saw the dandelion, and I knew hope wasn't lost. One second. I plucked it carefully and hurried home. I grabbed a bucket in Prim's hand and headed to the meadow, and yes, it was dotted with the golden-headed weeds. After we'd harvested those, we scrounged along the inside the fence for probably a mile until we'd filled the bucket with the dandelion green stems and flowers. That night, we gorged ourselves on dandelion salad and the rest of the bakery bread. What else? Prim asked me. What other food can we find? All kinds of things, I promised her. I just have to remember them. My mother had a book she'd brought with her from the apothecary shop. The pages were made of old parchment and covered in ink drawings of plants. Neat handwriting and blocks told their names, where to gather them. Then, when they came in bloom, their medical uses. But my father added other entries to the book: plants for eating, not healing, dandelions, pokeweed, mild onions, pines. Prim and I spent the rest of the night poring over those pages. The next day, we were off school for a while. I hung around the edges of the meadow, but finally I worked up the courage to go under the fence. It was the first time I'd been there alone, without my father's weapons to protect me. But I retrieved the small bow and arrows he'd made me from a hollow tree. I probably didn't go more than 20 yards into the woods that day. Most of the time I perched up in the branches of an old oak tree, hoping for the game to come by. After several hours, I had the good luck to kill a rabbit. I shot a few rabbits before with my father's guidance, but this I'd done on my own.
Very good. So why did you choose that particular selection?
Because I feel like it shows a lot of Katniss's personality. She's very, she hides herself a lot because she wants to be safe and she doesn't want to be very, into the danger and stuff. Mm-hmm. But once she gets into that, she knows she can do it, she's very confident in herself. Mm-hmm. So she knows, then in that part, she knew she could do it.
So she doesn't like to take risks.
No.
But as soon as she needs it, perhaps by necessity, because she needs to get food,
yes.
She's motivated by the fact that she needs to survive.
Yes.
Once she gets over that little hump of, I don't know if I can do this, she gets her confidence in that particular light.
Yes.
So she's building up a little bit stronger every single time she goes out hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ella. I think this is a great first inaugural episode. I think the book of the Hunger Games is one that you might be interested in getting as well. You can find that at our website at thebooktasters.com. We have links ready for you to purchase the book and get copies for yourself or for your classroom. And as you continue to listen to this podcast, we'll be showcasing episodes in different books, hopefully once every week for the rest of the school year, maybe even twice. We have a lot of people who are interested in joining us, don't we? But that being said, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and please visit us and follow us on social media at thebooktasters.com. Don't forget the there, because we are the one and only Book Tasters. That is THEBOOKTASTERS.com, thebooktasters.com. Ella, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.